Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. 2 weeks ago, we had a Tune Tuesday, and we studied the classic jazz standard, Autumn Leaves. Last week was supposed to be a Theory Tuesday, but I made a bold move and inserted another Tune Tuesday so that we could explore a Christmas tune the week of Christmas. So we had some fun with possibly, at least I think, possibly the best known and recognized Christmas tune of all time, Jingle Bells. So today I thought we would get back on track and end the year with a bang, with a Theory Tuesday that will indeed test and challenge our musical IQs. Today we are going to take a look at one of the most popular symmetrical scales of all, the Half-Whole Diminished Scale. I hope everyone had a fabulous Christmas and, of course, spent precious time with family and friends. I was reminded this Christmas just how precious time and family are. My mom, 90 years of age, died on Christmas Eve, which of course was difficult and very heartbreaking. She was a wonderful mom, and boy, man, did she love music. In fact, my mom and dad both were big-time music lovers. They always had music playing in the house, lots of big band music and lots of traditional jazz. It was their love for music that actually inspired me to study and pursue music professionally. So I thought I would start this episode with a tribute to my beautiful mom. She loved singers, and she especially loved Judy Garland. One of her all-time favorite tunes, which she always asked me to play, was a tune written by the great Harold Arlen. And it put Judy Garland on the map when she performed it in the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. Of course, I am speaking of that gorgeous tune, Over the Rainbow. So I would like to take a couple minutes right now and play a chorus of Over the Rainbow for my mom. So Mom, this one's for you. I love you. Thank you, Mom, for everything. I miss you big and always will. Okay, let's get on with Theory Tuesday in the half-whole diminished scale. I already mentioned that the half-whole diminished scale is a symmetrical scale, which simply means it is a scale that is structured, it is built using a recurring set of intervals. And this recurring set of intervals is pretty easy to figure out with the half-whole diminished scale because it is stated in the name, half-whole, which is telling us that if you want to build a half-whole diminished scale, you simply move in alternating half steps and whole steps. Pretty straightforward. If you are already familiar with this scale, then you probably know about its amazing versatility. For example, hidden in the half-whole diminished scale, check this out. Hidden in the half-whole diminished scale are 4 minor triads, 4 major triads, 8 diminished triads, 4 minor seventh chords, 4 dominant seventh chords, and 8 diminished seventh chords. Wow. That is a lot of buried shapes and sounds within one scale. In fact, I think you would find it pretty difficult to find another scale that packs that kind of punch when it comes to discovering various shapes and sounds that you can use for developing jazz improvisational language. And it's because of this versatility, it is a commonly used scale with jazzers when improvising, especially over the dominant chord, which is the angle we are going to explore today. But before we jump in to discover, learn, and play the half-whole diminished scale, I want to take just a second, as I always do at the beginning of every jazz piano lesson, every Jazz Piano Skills podcast episode, to personally invite all new first-time listeners, and all you old-timers too, to join Jazz Piano Skills, to become an active member. Simply go to JazzPianoSkills.com, select a membership plan, click on the join link, and welcome to our jazz family. It's that easy. As a Jazz Piano Skills member, you will have instant and full access to all of the educational content, all of it. The resources, all the support, all of it will be at your fingertips. It's educational content and resources that are continually growing each and every week. So here's what you can immediately access and begin using to maximize your musical growth as a Jazz Piano Skills member. Number 1, all of the educational podcast guides, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs that accompany every Jazz Piano Skills podcast episode every week. Number 2, you have access to the interactive courses, which make up a sequential jazz piano curriculum that utilizes a self-paced format. Number 3, you'll have access to the weekly Jazz Piano Skills masterclasses that I host every week for 1 hour online using the Zoom platform. You'll have access to join those classes every week if you wish to do so. Number 4, you'll have access to the private community, the global community, skill-specific and course-specific forums. And number 5, you will have personal and professional support 24/7 provided by me. You'll have a way to access and contact me and interact with me on a daily basis if you wish. Anytime you need help, I'm here to help you. So I say this every week because it's so important and I simply cannot stress it enough. If you are serious about developing the jazz piano skills needed for you to become an accomplished jazz pianist, then you should absolutely become a Jazz Piano Skills member and begin taking advantage of all of the educational content, the materials, the resources, and professional support. There are several membership plans to choose from, so you can definitely find one that is going to be a good fit for you. You can become a member for a month if you just simply want to try it out. There is a quarterly membership plan. There is an annual membership plan. And of course, there is even a lifetime membership plan. All plans will grant you full access to all of the educational content, materials, resources, and professional support. Makes no difference which plan you choose. So check everything out at JazzPianoSkills.com. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to spend some time with you by phone, through SpeakPipe, email, to help you determine which Jazz Piano Skills membership plan is best for you. All right, let's dive into Theory Tuesday. Let's dissect this half-whole diminished scale. Today, you are going to discover the symmetrical half-whole diminished scale. You are going to learn how to apply the half-whole diminished scale to dominant chords. And you're going to play the half-whole diminished scale from various and essential perspectives. So, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you are an experienced professional, you're going to find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring the half-whole diminished scale to be very beneficial. To begin, all you Jazz Piano Skills members need to pause this episode right now, and as always, take a few minutes and print the podcast guides, the illustrations, and the lead sheets. Make sure your printer tray is loaded. As always, there's quite a bit of information to print. Always important to have these in front of you as we go through the lesson. As I always say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And the illustrations, the lead sheets, along with the play-alongs that I produce for each Jazz Piano Skills podcast episode are designed to illuminate various aspects of the essential jazz piano skills that we are about to explore. So take a second right now and print those guides. Okay, now that you have the podcast guides in front of you, I want to walk you through them. So let's begin with the illustrations. There are 15 keyboard illustrations in front of you that are going to help you illuminate this amazing scale from a dominant chord perspective. With each one of the keyboard illustrations, I have taken the time to map out the construction of the half-whole diminished scales from different perspectives, okay? So to begin, take a look at the first three keyboard illustrations on page 1. You will notice that there are 3 half-whole diminished scales. One starting on the note C, one starting on the note D flat, and one starting on the note D. I want to point out right away that this is it when it comes to the half-whole diminished scale. There are only 3 of them, because as you notice, if you start the pattern over on E flat, you are simply recreating the same half-whole diminished scale that you built when starting on the note C. This is the first thing to wrap your mind around, that there are only 3 half-whole diminished scales. So spend some quality time thinking, right? Thinking through this fact and testing this claim by redrawing these illustrations starting from various notes. Trust me, a little theory grunt work will go a long way to helping you to begin obtaining a conceptual command of the half-whole diminished scale. Now, the next 11 illustrations are placed into 3 groups of 4 scales each. Let me say that again. The next 11 illustrations are placed into 3 groups of 4 half-diminished scales each. Group 1 consists of C, E flat, F sharp, and A half-whole diminished scales. Group 2 consists of D flat, E, G, and B flat half-whole diminished scales. And group 3 has D, F, A flat, and B half diminished scales grouped together. These are not random groupings. These groupings illustrate the 4 dominant chords that share the same half-whole diminished scale. Now let me say that again too. These groupings illustrate the 4 dominant chords that share the same half-whole diminished scale. Again, spend some quality time studying these groupings. If you do, you will notice that the half-whole diminished scale generates the exact same alterations within each dominant sound. The alterations being the flat 9, the sharp 9, and the sharp 11. Now that's pretty amazing. Just think about that. That's pretty amazing. To help illuminate this phenomenon, I used orange and green X's on the illustrations that you're holding. The orange X's mark the upper and altered extensions of the dominant sound, right? They illustrate the flat 9, the sharp 9, the sharp 11, and the flat 13. The green X's denote the primary chord tones, the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. So again, the orange X's mark the upper altered extensions, flat 9, sharp 11, 13. The green X's denote the primary chord tones, the root, third, fifth, and seventh. I have also included, as always, some essential study tips to help you efficiently and effectively, conceptually and physically, learn the half-whole diminished scale. As always, I want to strongly encourage you to spend time with these illustrations, not only at the piano, but away from the piano. Definitely have them at your fingertips and within eyesight when practicing, of course. But use these illustrations as a reference to help you maintain focus and save you a ton of time and, I promise you, frustration when dissecting, studying, and practicing the half-whole diminished scale. Okay, so that's a quick run-through of the illustrations. Now, let's take a look at the lead sheets. Okay, you have 15 lead sheets. The first 3 lead sheets musically notate each of the 3 half-whole diminished scales and the 4 dominant chords that the scale produces. The remaining 12 lead sheets are devoted to each individual dominant chord and playing the half-whole diminished scale from various entry points within the sound. In other words, being able to play the half-whole diminished scale launching from the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh of the dominant sound. It's crucial. It's important. You'll notice on all 15 of the lead sheets, the same structure is used, not only for consistency with the musical notation, but to also present a practice plan, if you will, for you as well. All lead sheets use 4 measure phrases that are intentionally built utilizing alternating sound and silence. In measure 1, you are going to ascend through the half-whole diminished scale with a different entry and destination point. Measure 2, you're going to do what I like to call rest and assess. Measure 3, you are going to descend through the half-whole diminished scale, again utilizing a different entry and destination point. In measure 4, you are once again going to rest and assess, which, by the way, it is so important to stress that rest and assess, those measures are just as important as the actual playing of the half-whole diminished scale. And you might be asking why. Because this is where you actually determine what was good, what was bad, what was ugly about what you just played. Listen very carefully. If you are not assessing the good, the bad, and ugly of your playing, then you are not practicing correctly. This is a vital component of practicing, and it should always be built into the exercises that you're practicing. This is exactly why I structure all of my lead sheets to include this essential element. I'm going to model this for you today in all of the demonstrations I play, so you have an idea of how they sound and how you should approach practicing the half-whole diminished scale. In fact, it's how you should approach practicing any scale. I strongly encourage you to have these lead sheets sitting on your piano and ready for action. And just like the illustrations, I want to encourage you to study the lead sheets away from the piano. I have said this a million times to students over the past 30 plus years. My best practicing has always been done away from the instrument. And this is where you can truly sort everything out conceptually and then adequately and properly prepare for the physical work you're going to do once you do approach the piano. Remember, conceptual understanding drives physical development. You cannot play what you do not know. It's that simple. Study the illustrations and the lead sheets. Study them. I want to also take a second to provide you with some insight regarding the play-alongs that you can and, of course, should be using when practicing. There are 48 play-along tracks, 4 for each dominant chord, that allows you to thoroughly practice the half-whole diminished scale from the various entry points, from the root, from the third, the fifth, and the seventh. The play-along tracks sync beautifully with the lead sheets. So important to use this tool, right? To use the play-along tracks, not only for the development of your time, feel, and articulation, which of course are dimensions of playing jazz that no teacher can teach you. You simply have to experience them, and experience them a lot in order to properly develop and acquire them. But the play-alongs will also help your ears recognize and internalize the altered dominant sounds, the flat 9, the sharp 9, the sharp 11, which is another essential jazz piano skill. So all of you Jazz Piano Skills members, listen up. You have access to these amazing educational resources, all 3 podcast guides, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs, for every podcast episode, every week, of every month, of every year. So use them, study them, and practice with them. They will maximize your musical and jazz growth. I guarantee it. Okay, now that we've gone through the podcast guides and we have them in front of us, let's discover, learn, and play the half-whole diminished scale. I am going to focus today on the first half-whole diminished scale and use this scale exclusively in all of my demonstrations. Of course, everything I am doing with the first half-whole diminished scale can and should be applied to half-whole diminished scale number 2 and half-whole diminished scale number 3. Remember, all of the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs will help you do just that. I know this is much easier said than done, and of course, as we march on today, you are, more than likely, going to have many questions pop up, which of course you should, right? And that is precisely why I'm committed to providing all Jazz Piano Skills members immediate, personal and professional support. If you are listening to this podcast through the Jazz Piano Skills website, which I hope you are, you can use the extremely convenient SpeakPipe widget that is nestled directly beneath the podcast player to send me a voicemail message. It's that easy. It's that simple. One click, and the two of us are interacting and engaging with each other. Send me a voice message with your questions, and I will send you one back with answers. It's very cool technology. If you're listening on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon Music, or any of the other popular podcast directories, you can use the link speakpipe.com JazzPianoSkills. That URL again is speakpipe.com/JazzPianoSkills. And that will activate the SpeakPipe widget so that you can send me a quick message. And if you are a scaredy cat, and by the way, there's been some scaredy cats that have, taken the plunge and that they're no longer scaredy cats. I'm so thrilled about that. But if you are a scaredy cat and are afraid to send me a voice message, then you can post your question in the private Jazz Piano Skills forum and let the community help you, right? Or if you wish, you can join me. I mentioned earlier the Thursday evening masterclass. Every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Central Time, join me online for an hour, right, where we get to explore this episode in much more detail and address any other jazz-specific questions that you may have, right? I provide all Jazz Piano Skills members with so many ways to get help, so definitely take advantage of the opportunities. As you know, my entire goal is to provide you with the very best jazz piano lessons, the very best jazz piano educational materials, and the very best jazz piano support that is available anywhere today. Okay, grab lead sheet number 1. Let's get that in front of you. Lead sheet number 1. This lead sheet deals exclusively with half-whole diminished scale number 1. On the lead sheet, you can see there are 4 dominant chords: C dominant, E flat dominant, F sharp dominant, A dominant. Notice how these chords are a minor third apart, and they themselves formulate a diminished chord: C, E flat, F sharp, A. Wow, what a coincidence. Now, I'm saying that with tongue in cheek, right? It's amazing. Just music is fabulous. Just a side note. It's such a great puzzle, right? It's like a huge, gigantic jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces just seem to kind of fit together perfectly. It's an incredible study. Now, these 4 dominant chords all share the same half-whole diminished scale. So check this out. Here's the half-whole diminished scale starting on C. Right? So I'm going to put C dominant underneath that. Wow. And when you play that, when you put your hands on that, you're going to see that flat 9 and that sharp 9, that sharp 11 jump out, right? You're going to see it. And you're going to see it as a C dominant chord, right? And you're going to see it as a C dominant scale. Now, I'm going to play that same scale starting on E flat. All right? And I'm going to put E flat dominant underneath it. So check this out. Right? Now all of a sudden, it's an E flat dominant chord and an E flat dominant scale, but it's the same scale. All right, now I'm going to play the same scale starting on F sharp, and I'm going to put F sharp dominant underneath it. So again. How cool is that? So now when I'm playing that, I actually see that as F sharp dominant 7, which it is, and the scale F sharp dominant 7 scale. So I'm seeing that flat 9 jump out, the sharp 9, that sharp 11. It's amazing. And then the last one on that lead sheet that you have in front of you is A7, same scale, but now starting on A, and I'm applying it to A dominant. Again. Wow, it's amazing. Same scale, 4 different dominant chords, and I see them in relationship to each one of those dominant chords. I see the scale in relationship to each one of those dominant chords. Now, one thing I want to mention, I am using inharmonic spellings to try on that lead sheet. I am using inharmonic spellings to try to best represent the chord scale relationship of the dominant chord, kind of a 5-1 relationship, and of course the altered sounds. So this may take some mental calisthenics, but it will be worth the effort for sure. And I guess what I'm saying to you is on that lead sheet, it might look like the scales are different, but they're not, right? So again, some mental calisthenics may be in order, but it will be worth the effort. In fact, this is very much like the classic optical illusion game, where you have one picture consisting of 2 different images. Remember those when we were kids, right? I love those pics. You have a picture that when you look at it one way, it's a vase, and when you look at it another way, it's 2 faces looking at each other. Or you have a picture of a frog, and you look at it another way, and it's a prince, right? Well, that is exactly what we are doing here today with the half-whole diminished scale. You look at it one way, and it's a C7, flat 9, sharp 11. You look at it another way, and it's an E flat 7, flat 9, sharp 11. You look at it another way, and it's an F sharp 7, flat 9, sharp 11. And yet, another way, and it's an A7, flat 9, sharp 11. How cool is this? Again, it takes some mental calisthenics for you to get there, but you can definitely get there. And that is what I am going to demonstrate right now. So demonstration number 1, we're going to focus on the C dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11 sound. I'm going to play the half-whole diminished scale, starting on the root, starting on C, ascending and descending. And you'll notice there on the lead sheet, measure 1, I ascend. Measure 2, rest and assess. Measure 3, descend. Measure 4, rest and assess, right? So let me bring the ensemble in. Let's listen to this C half-whole diminished scale with these beautiful altered sounds, flat 9, sharp 11. Let's check it out, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go. Pretty cool, right? You can see, you can hear why this is a popular scale with jazz musicians. It's a great sound. You'll also notice that I'm just playing up the scale and down the scale. When I'm learning a jazz piano scale, I'm not trying to get fancy with this. I'm trying to digest this sound conceptually. I'm trying to digest this sound physically, of course. And I'm trying to digest this sound orally with my ears. So I'm keeping things very simple. I'm starting on the root. I'm ascending up through the seventh of this sound, and then descending, right? And then I use my rest and assess measures to really determine the good and bad and ugly of what I just played, right? I want to sound like a jazz pianist. I want to sound like a jazz musician. I don't want this to sound like an exercise. I want this to sound very musical when I play. Even when I'm working out all the details of a jazz piano scale, I still want it to sound musical. Okay, so stay with lead sheet number 1 there. We're going to look at demonstration number 2. Okay, now it's the E flat 7 sound. Flat 9, sharp 11. Same scale, except I'm starting on the root of E flat. And I'm going to utilize the exact same process, right? I'm going to ascend in measure 1, rest and assess in measure 2, descend in measure 3, rest and assess in measure 4. I'm going to play through it several times, wanting to digest this sound conceptually, physically, and orally. So let's bring the ensemble in, let's check it out, and we'll go from there. Here we go. Crazy, right? Exact same scale, different entry point, right? Starting on that E flat, and all of a sudden now it's an E flat dominant, flat 9, sharp 11. Wow, how cool is that? So let's do the exact same thing, right? You'll see right there on lead sheet number 1, right? The very next scale, F sharp dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11. Going to do the exact same thing I just did for C7 and for E flat 7, right? 4 measure exercise, ascending and descending through the scale with 2 measures of rest and assess, right? I want to sound like a jazz pianist. So now let's look at this half-whole diminished scale from the perspective of F sharp, okay? So here we go. Let's check it out. Again, same half-whole diminished scale, different perspective, different context, different application. It's amazing. Now, the last dominant chord that this half-whole diminished scale takes care of, A7. So now I'm going to play the exact same half-whole diminished scale, starting on A7. Got an A dominant in my left hand, playing that scale using the same format, ascending and descending through the scale. Ascending measure 1, rest and assess measure 2, descending measure 3, rest and assess measure 4. Okay, let's bring the ensemble in and let's play this half-whole diminished scale from an A7 perspective. All right, here we go. Let's check it out. podcast that I think you would be challenged. You would find it very difficult to find another scale that packs this much punch when it comes to versatility and when it comes to shapes, various shapes and sounds that can be utilized to develop jazz improvisation language. I think you would find that to be a very difficult task. I want to take a second right now and just remind all of you Jazz Piano Skills members. I want to encourage you to tap into the Jazz Piano Skills interactive courses. If you have not done so already, please take the time to do so. They are fantastic. The courses make up a sequential curriculum that uses a self-paced format to help you thoroughly study the essential jazz piano skills that you need to command in order to become an accomplished jazz pianist. Each of my courses are packed with detailed instruction and illustrations, in-depth educational talks, interactive learning media, traditional guides and worksheets, high-definition video demonstrations of me playing the skills in all 12 keys, play-along tracks, lead sheets, and of course, professional and personal educational support. On top of all that, the courses are easily accessible through any of your smart devices, your tablet, your phone, your laptop computer, desktop computer, your TV, and yes, even your watch. So check out Jazz Piano Skills courses at JazzPianoSkills.com. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. Okay, grab lead sheet number 4. Deals solely with C dominant 7. Okay, lead sheet number 4. Now we're going to play that half-whole diminished scale and have it focus just solely on the C dominant chord. So we're going to explore that half-whole diminished half-whole diminished scale from the root, from the third, from the fifth, and from the seventh of the C dominant chord. Okay, we're going to utilize the exact same format that we have been using, where we're going to ascend on measure 1, we're going to rest and assess on measure 2, we're going to descend on measure 3, and then we're going to rest and assess on measure 4. Okay, same format, same structure. So here we go. Let's refresh our ears with the C dominant sound, flat 9, sharp 11, launching from the root. Here we go. Let's check it out. Nice. Pretty straightforward, right? C dominant chord, starting on the root, playing the half-whole diminished scale up to the 7th and back down. In fact, that should be your number one objective right now. Be able to play all 12 dominant chords and apply the half-whole diminished scale to each one of them from the root to the 7th and back. Okay, so now with that in mind, let's take a look at the next step. The next step would be to do the exact same thing, launching from the 3rd, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to play the C dominant chord, and I'm going to play the half-whole diminished scale, right? Same scale, but just now starting on the 3rd of C7. So I'm going to start on the note E. And again, ascend, rest and assess, descend, rest and assess. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out. Starting from the 3rd. And this is what it sounds like. Here we go. do we need to be able to play these scales from different entry points in relationship to a specific dominant chord. But it's great for the ears, right? It's just great for the ears to hear this from a different entry point. And obviously, it's great technique as well. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, launching from the fifth. And again, you're going to notice it takes on a whole new sound. And technically speaking, it presents a different challenge, right? Because now we're starting from the fifth. How cool. So let's bring the ensemble in, and let's see what this half-whole diminished scale sounds like when we launch from the fifth of our dominant chord. Here we go. Check it out. You know, it's interesting. I've been referring to this scale as half-whole diminished throughout the entire podcast. And it is when we launch from the root, right? It is indeed. But it's interesting, right? When we launch from the third and launch from the fifth and the seventh of the sound, it actually becomes what we call a whole half diminished scale. And you'll hear people refer to it as that as well. Half-whole diminished, whole half diminished, right? In application to a dominant sound, it's typically referred to a half-whole diminished because we're talking about launching from the root. But as soon as you move it to the third or to the fifth or to the seventh, that set interval structure, recurring structure that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, actually turns into what we call a whole half relationship. Just a little trivia, a little side note there for you, right? Okay, now, the final demonstration, the C dominant sound, launching our half-whole diminished scale, or whole half diminished scale, from the seventh of C dominant. So starting on the note B flat. So let's check this out. Let's see what it sounds like to the ears, and let's see what challenges we have with technique and fingerings as well. So here we go. Let's check it out. C dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11 sound using the half-whole diminished scale. So here we go. Let's check it out. What a scale, what versatility, what a sound. The half-whole diminished scale. Definitely worth your time and your effort to study this scale, to study this sound, to get familiar with it, and begin applying it to your dominant chords. You're going to love it. It will be time well spent, and the jazz vocabulary that will flow from it will become invaluable for you. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring the half-whole diminished scale to be insightful and, of course, beneficial. Just a reminder, no masterclass this week. Thursday is New Year's Eve. Share it with family, share it with friends, share it with loved ones. As a Jazz Piano Skills member, be sure to use the educational podcast guides for this podcast lesson and the Jazz Piano Skills courses to maximize your musical growth. Likewise, make sure you are an active participant of the Jazz Piano Skills forums. Get involved. Make some new jazz piano friends. As always, you can reach me by phone, 972-380-8050, extension 211. By email, Dr. Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence at JazzPianoSkills.com, or by SpeakPipe, that handy little widget found throughout the Jazz Piano Skills website, podcast episodes, and the Jazz Piano Skills courses. That's it for now. And until next week, enjoy the journey. Have a fabulous celebration New Year's Eve. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano.